Hey guys, what's up? This is Bolterity, and welcome to a new guide where I'll be explaining a few things regarding the champion system. I'll be explaining a few really important points and some tips regarding them and how you want to pretty much distribute your points. I'll be explaining it in more detail than I have done in my previous video. I will also be making some little comparisons between a bunch of skills and their morphs and another comparison between Magika and spell damage. So I hope you guys find this guide helpful, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you guys in my next video. And enjoy, I mean. Alright, so to start with, we're gonna start with the Retry. Now, as a sorcerer, you want to care the most thing that gives you survivability as a sorcerer and keeps you alive the entire time is your shields. So as long as your shields are strong, you should be good enough and strong enough to survive during heated battles and to be able to tank a lot of damage. Now, I always like to put most of my points into Bastion, but not all my points. You know, now the reason I got 100 here is because I have extra points to put into other CP trees, which is Hardy, Thick Skin, and Elemental Defender. But if I did not have enough, I would like to put in here at least 75 points just to get the Revival passive, which gives you a 10k damage shield 5 seconds when you get resurrected, and that is really affecting, and that is really, I mean, helpful, and is a key to survive when you get rezzed, because during the heat of battle, people will kill you almost instantly when you get rezzed, and that is just a lifesaver pretty much. So you want to at least put 75 points to Bastion, and the rest you want to put them into Thick Skinned, Elemental Defender, and Hardy. Now I like to put most of my points, at least like say 10% Thick Skinned, and then you can put on here between 5 and 10% to Hardy, and I'd say 5% is enough into Elemental Defender. Now the reason I like to go for Thick Skin mainly is because there's a lot of damage for DKs, Sorcerers, and Templars that is damage over time, and that includes Jesus Beam, it includes Soul Assault. DKs have a lot of damage over time skills, dots, you know. Sorcerer's Curse and Lightning Splash and other stuff, you know. This pretty much just really does affect you more, I'd say, than Hardy and Elemental Defender, so I like to put more points into that. And I put like 20 points to get a 80% damage reduction bonus from magic. 8% I'd say is enough, and you can put in here 5% into Elemental Defender, which just basically reduces frost, shock, and flame damage. Pretty easy. Now, for the last 3 in here, you don't need any of that at all, because it is just, I believe this is just a tree for tanking builds that just wanna pretty much tank for PvP or PvE. Alright, so for the regen tree, the green tree I mean, the way I like to divide my points into this tree is pretty much by having 5% into doubling. No matter what, I always like to have 5% into doubling to reduce the cost of dodge and break free, and that is a really key factor into surviving as a sorcerer. Now, when you end up having a lot more points, you kind of want to buff that up even more than 5%. And your main key to survive as a sorcerer is your regen, and it's really important to keep your Magika up, and regen is what keeps your Magika up. So you want to have 100 points into here, or pretty much most of your points. So if you didn't have enough points to put 100 into here, you can go into, let's say, 70, and you can put like 30 in here into Magician. Now, if you have enough points, you can go most into regen, and then the rest you can give it to reductions. Now, reductions maxes out at 15.8% with 100 points into it. It does not go up to 25%, the same as Arcanist, the magical recovery one. That is why pretty much adding 2 points into here is equal to 1 point into here. I mean, 1 point into here is equal to 2 points into reductions, because it starts to go up by 0.1%, just 0.1, 0.1, and that, you know, goes pretty slow, you know. Now, if your build is not based on regen, if it does not self-sustain itself, pretty much, if you don't have a minimum base regen of 1300 with unbuffed, you know, like without the CP tree, please do not put points into recovery. Like, you don't want to put most of your points into recovery if you don't have a recovery build. You know, you gotta have a high base regen, and then you can put 25% into that, because say for example you have 800 regen and you put 25% into recovery, your regen will only go up to 950, almost 1k, and that is still bad. You know, 1k regen is really bad, you know, like it isn't even that high. So pretty much these builds are sustain of potions. So if you are a build that sustains and stays alive from potions, you want to put monster points into reductions, and you can put the rest into recovery. You know what I mean? And you can just keep 5% into tumbling. Now finally for the blue tree. Now the blue tree is your damage tree pretty much, and the main points, if you are going to have a normal build, normal sorcerer build, and not a pet build, the way you want to do it is have 75 points into Thaumaturge, have 56 monster points into spell crit damage, and the rest into Elemental Expert. I like to have about 10% to Elemental Expert, and pretty much the rest, whatever is left over, just to give it all to L4. Now I like to have a minimum of 75% into Thaumaturge. You don't want to go all out. I mean, 75 is enough. You get the passive that increases your damage by 10%. You don't need to go up to 120% is enough, and then you can give the rest to your spell crit damage, and and then the rest into Elemental Expert. Now, don't put many points to Elfborn unless you are having a crit build, and even if you have a crit build, your crit is based off your base damage. So if your base damage is low, your crit is not going to even go up that high. So you want to buff your base damage by putting points to Thaumaturge, and then putting the rest into crit damage, because as I said, you need a high base damage to get it to pretty much be effective. Now that is if you're gonna have a normal sorcerer build with curse, frags, crushing shock, and streak or whatever. Now if you're gonna have a pet build, which usually is what I have, you wanna buff your staff expert, because you always pretty much the entire time you're gonna be heavy attacking. So and what increases your heavy attack damage with whatever staff it is Elemental Expert and your heavy attack tree. So I take out almost most of my points out of Elfborn, put them about 11.8 looks good enough, I guess. You can have, I might even take it down to 7%, maybe less, I don't know. And put more into my light and heavy attacks, because this is pretty much your damage. Now pets, I've said it before and I said it again, pets do not get affected by any of the CP3 trees, you know, like all the trees in here, all the things that you can put points into, none of them affects your pets. So remember that Thaumaturge is not going to help your pets or whatever, you know. The reason I have points into here, because even with the pet build, I use curse and I use frags, so this buffs my curse and my frags, and it does prove really helpful for sure. I don't have much crit really, so I don't really want to buff my Elfborn. I keep it 6% and buff my light and heavy attacks, and you want to buff your Elemental Expert, because Elemental Expert buffs your heavy attacks a lot, same way that Staff Expert does. So you want to put points mainly into Elemental, Staff Expert, Thaumaturge, and then the rest you can give it to Elfborn if you feel like it, you know. And that's pretty much it for all the CP trees. Now finally I'm gonna go through a few comparisons between a few skills, like 2 or 3 skills, between different morphs, and you know, like what morphs are better and more effective, you know. Firstly, I'd like to start with Question Shock and Force Pulse. Now, as I know many people use Question Shock, but if you're gonna run a DPS build and you want to do more damage, I'd always love to use Force Pulse. And to be honest, I honestly like it. Now, it is true that Question Shock does the interrupt thing. You know, it does have the interrupt bonus to it. It does interrupt what do you call it? It does interrupt reses. It interrupts casting. It pretty much interrupts whatever has a cast time, and that includes GT's beams as well, which does prove as a problem, and it does prove helpful, you know, against them. But I honestly prefer Force Pulse because it does almost a lot more damage, and because I do have a build that is based on Force Pulse, where I can get my Force Pulse to do almost 2k damage buffed, you know, or say 19k damage unbuffed and pretty much 2k damage per element buffed, you know. So if you can actually make such a strong build, like if you want to honestly maximize your DPS as much as you can, I definitely recommend Force Pulse. Now it does channel to 2 more enemies for 2k damage. It is kind of helpful against sorcerers that have Ball of Lightning or against multiple enemies, but I prefer it just for the more damage that it has into it. I don't really care about the interrupt with Crushing Shock. I mean, some people find it really helpful. I honestly don't really care about it. I'd prefer to do more damage. So imagine if you can actually buff your Force Pulse to do 2k damage per element. That is 6k base damage base. And most of the times it does crit. Most of the times it crits. So it pretty much does like say 2k, 3k, and then 4k, or 2k, 5k, and then 4k. You know, that is a lot of damage for one spell. You know, one cheap spell just costs 1350, as you can see. It doesn't really cost much, as you can see. So so I guess, yeah, I as I said, I prefer to use Force Pulse, you know. As you can see here, I didn't really buff it much, but it went up to 1851, and the crits really do a lot of difference, and it definitely is worth it. Now, if you prefer the interrupt from Crushing Shock, then feel free to do it. But as I said, I prefer to use Force Pulse. Next, we got Power Surge and Entropy, or Structure or Degeneration, whatever it is. Now, Power Surge costs 2.8k Magika, and that is quite a lot during battle when you could be running out of Magika. That is quite a lot. Now, it buffs your spell damage by 20%. That is pretty good, and it is helpful, and it heals you if for critical strikes. But the thing is about this, it only heals you for weapon damage, the critical strikes of your weapon damage. So if you're running a Magika build, it is not going to heal you either ways. And even if it does, I'm not really entirely sure, but even if it does, it is not as worth as Entropy. Now, Entropy costs 422, as you can see, but that is not the main reason why I prefer it more. Now, both of them give you 20% spell damage bonus. Now, Crit Surge is for lasts 23 seconds, and Entropy lasts 14.4 seconds if you buff it with the passive that gives longer duration to your mage's skill abilities. Now, 14 seconds might not be much, but the thing is, you actually want to cast Entropy more and more and more, even before it goes up, the duration goes off, because not only because it is cheap, but because it is a mage's guild ability, and the Might of the Guild passive, the last passive, buffs your damage by 20% when you cast the mage's guild ability, and that applies to Entropy, meaning when you cast Entropy, your next spell is gonna be 40% stronger. You know, it's going to be 40% stronger, and not only 20% stronger. So it's going to be buffed by 40%. So always, if you want to go for an ultimate, a Dome Breaker, a Meteor, a Soul Assault, whatever it is, if you cast Entropy before it, it will buff your Soul Assault, for example, from 40k can go up to 48k or 50k. You know, it is pretty crazy. That is why it is more useful and more helpful than Crit Surge. Next, I would like to address the next skill, which is Destructive Touch. Now, I've seen many people, and for the past long 1.6 and 1.5, people have been using Destructive Rage for a long time. And I mean, it is nice to have a 41 meter range on it, that is true. But the thing is, this skill back in 1.2 and 1.3, the touch morph used to have the clench morph used to have a range of 2 meters. Now right now it is 22 meters, okay? And clench reach, it used to be 20 meters, you know. So what they did was they gave the 20 meters over to clench, and I think in 1.5, and they buffed reach even more by 41 meters. Now the reason what I want to say is the reason I prefer Clench over Reach is for quite a bunch of reasons, and the main one is because the point of Destructive Touch, the skill itself, is to give you an insta stun. You know, you want to instantly stun someone to go for an ultimate or whatever combo you have in your mind. So the main reason of this skill is to stun someone. So if you actually go for Reach has quite an animation. It's got quite a big animation to it. You know, the animation when you cast Reach is pretty much a really big fire ring coming towards you, and you can easily see it, you know what I mean? So you can easily see it coming. It is pretty much telling you, I am coming to stun you, you know? And the thing is, if you want to stun someone, you want to stun him instantly, and normally the best way to do that is to reduce the distance between you and your enemy. You don't want to stun someone who's like 50 meters away from you. You want to stun someone who is 2 or 3 meters away from you, so he cannot see the skill coming up. You don't want him to see that there is a stun coming. So if I were to use Reach, or someone were to use Destructive Reach on me, and he is like about 10 meters away, I'm gonna see it coming. I'm gonna either wall dodge it or I'm gonna block it, you know. And and the reason I prefer Clench over Reach is because not only does the Flame one apply a stun, so the Flame Clench, as you can see, if you read below, it says Flame Clench causes knockback and a stun. It gives you an extra effect, which is a stun. So it adds another 2 second stun. So it goes up from a 1 second stun, it goes up to 3 seconds almost, you know, because when they get knocked in the air and then they fall on the floor, that's like 1 second, and then 2 seconds because of the flame stun, the flame clench. Currently I have a lightning staff, so that won't be effective, but I like to use it on a flame staff. Now the animation on destructive clench is like a really small fireball that does not really look like anything that would really stun, and it is really small and you can hardly detect it. And the thing is, Clench with 22 meters range on it, it is really decent. Like, it is really decent. I would not complain for about a 22 meter range ability. I mean, the thing is, as I said, Reach used to be 22 meters, and the Clench used to be like 2 meters, and that kind of made Clench really not as useful as it is right now. But now that it's buffed to 22 meters, I definitely go for Clench, because not only because does it have an extra elemental bonus for each element, but also because it does provide the more, if you want to play it smart, you know, in a battle, and you want to stun someone, and as I said, they would not see the stun coming, and it would just come out of nowhere, and it would also provide you with a longer duration to your stun. So that's pretty much it. You know, as I said, I'd prefer Clench. You may still use Reach if you like, but I'd prefer Clench, as I said. And finally, I just wanted to make the most important comparison between spell damage and maximum magicka. Now, there has been many builds that were that had, and I've seen a lot of them that had like 3.3k spell damage, you know, and with about 20k maximum magicka, or 25k, or 26k, or whatever it is, you know, like a lot of spell damage stacked into one thing, you know, a lot of spell damage. And it does buff your damage a lot, that is true. And as you know, maximum magicka gives damage, and spell damage gives damage as well to your spells. Like, they both buff your damage. Spell damage and maximum magicka. Now, I've tested a lot recently, like a lot, honestly. Like, I've tested with spell damage and maximum magicka, and I've realized that honestly, rather than going up to 50k magicka and say 1200 spell damage, or going up to over 3k spell damage and having low magicka, you know, like either or, you know, like going for all out on magicka, or all out onto damage, going midway between each. So as you can see here, going for about 37k, hold on, let me put more magicka, going for about 39k maximum magicka, and 2k or 2.1k spell damage, it is actually better than going all out into damage, or all spell damage, or all out into magicka. The reason is, there comes a point where, I'm not sure exactly what point it is in numbers, but there comes a point where adding more spell damage won't give you as much damage as adding more maximum magicka, and vice versa. So there comes also a point where adding more maximum magicka won't give you as much damage as adding more spell damage. So if you actually make a build that has about 40k magicka and 2.1k spell damage, you're gonna gain a lot more damage than going all into 3.1k spell damage and pretty much 20k magicka. Now, as you can see, Hal, if you switch over to dual wield as well, that would also buff it more. So I got 26k, 2.6k spell damage, and that is a lot of spell damage. At the same time, I also got 39k maximum magicka, and that is a lot, you know. Yeah, so as I was saying, you want to pretty much buff your spell damage and buff your maximum Magika in a way that they both go above average. You don't want to have average spell damage or average maximum Magika. You want to go above average in both of them. So you want to have, I'd say, at least 37k maximum Magika or 36k and at least 2200 spell damage. At least 2200 buffed or unbuffed, doesn't matter, but if you can do that, you will gain the most out of your damage rather than stacking it all into spell damage or stacking it all into maximum Magika. So that's pretty much it for the video, guys. I hope you all found this helpful and understood what I was saying, because right now I'm using quite a new mic, to be honest. It isn't really that good, but it is decent, I guess. So I hope you all understood me and you all found this helpful. So please don't forget to leave a like and comment with your ideas and what you think. I might be wrong in a few things. I hope I'm not, but I might be. So please be sure to explain that to me in the comments if I am. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. And I'll see you guys in my next video.